We had offices like next to each other then with a glass wall in between. And it literally felt like you were like, I don't know, a doctor, a therapist. Like it was just, you had so many meetings. And what I loved about your style, and you did it a little with me, I would ask you like, I have this project, like, can we meet? Can we? And what I liked personally for me, and I always joke that like, I definitely have the stereotypical more sales mind, like that little bit of ADD, like multi-passionate, I like to say. A little bit easily distracted. And you would very nicely just be like, here's like your homework in essence. Don't come back here if it's not done.
Right.
Which was so good for like a multi-passionate person because you do need like a sounding board, but what you don't need is someone that's just going to let you talk every week and not actually accomplish anything. Good morning, everyone. I am back with Colleen Barry, our CEO. And I'm really excited about the episode we have today. Colleen, a little history on Colleen, has been with the company since before the company was a thing. You were with the company when it was acquired by Larry and Paul.
That's right.
And starting as the head of marketing. And you're
actually...
starting as before that as an administrator, we both did, which I really think is
I think it's important. I think it's good. Yeah.
But you had, Larry and Paul sort of gave you a role that didn't exist as you like evolved, your role evolved as a leader. And you were head of productivity. You had a little foray in the coaching world, which I feel like is totally your strength. I feel like it's just an incredible strength of yours. And you are the best person to tell us just what are the top 1% of agents doing differently. So that's going to be our topic for today.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be a ton of fun.
Can you give us a little background on what that role looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a brainchild of Larry and Paul, and they said, we'd love to see our agents grow. So let's create a role where you just help them grow. And that was really the only directive. So it was up to me and really us. I mean, we collaborated together to figure it out, but it was like, how can we best support our agents and help them drive their businesses to the next level? So it was a lot of learning. And we didn't even know what to call it. And Larry said, how about director of productivity? Let's call it that. So we said, sure. It was a title that required a lot of explanation for people, but ultimately it was really trying to help agents figure out what did they want to try to accomplish with their businesses. And in very specific ways, because the way our brains work is that they're like GPS systems. So if you say, this is the number, or this is the thing that I really want to be able to accomplish in this certain amount of time, and we create systems for it, you will get there. It's really astonishing how close people will get to their goals, and sometimes shoot well beyond them. So that was really the role. And I did a ton of reading, a ton of learning, so that I even had a way that I could tackle that because I had come from a marketing background. So I will say in that marketing role, and you probably experienced this too, in different roles within the company. One of the things I learned was that agents didn't necessarily have a plan for themselves. So what would happen is they would come in and say, I want to create a postcard. And I would say, okay, great. So where are you sending it? And they would say, I'm not really sure. And so, well, what do you want it to say? And they're like, I don't know. They knew they wanted to do something to push their business, but they just didn't have a clear sense of how this one thing was really supposed to fit in the overall scheme of things. So what we would do then is what probably could have been a 15-minute conversation became at least 45 minutes of, well, what does this year look like compared to last year? Where are you hoping to land and all of those things? And that would get us down to the who and the messaging, right? So I did have some experience with it, but now that became my sole focus, was really trying to help them create those plans and to be accountable for the plans they created.
We had offices like next to each other then with a glass wall in between. And it literally felt like you were like, I don't know, a doctor, a therapist. Like it was just, you had so many meetings. And what I loved about your style, and you did it a little with me, I would ask you like, I have this project, like, can we meet? Can we? And what I liked personally for me, and I always joke that like I definitely have the stereotypical more sales mind, like that little bit of ADD, like multi-passionate, I like to say. A little bit easily distracted. And you would very nicely just be like, here's like your homework in essence.
Yeah.
Don't come back here if it's not done.
Right.
Which was so good for like a multi-passionate person because you do need like a sounding board, but what you don't need is someone that's just going to let you talk every week and not actually accomplish anything.
That's right.
And it would be like, I will continue to help you. The company will continue to provide this, but like you said you wanted to do this postcard. We need the list of who you're going to send it to. We need these 3 things. It would be simple, but like we're going to punt the meeting if it's not done next week because we have nothing else to talk about, which I think was like honestly very important, kept people very focused and on track. And I feel like that is like the next question I have, you know, right now there's so much noise. And I will say from a high level, I feel like it's more important than ever. And what I feel is like what the most successful people are, like we've watched now, you've watched more, but like we've watched so many ups and downs. And I believe that the most successful people don't get distracted.
Right.
And in fact, the moment like now when there's the NAR settlement and there's the inspection thing and people that are getting obsessed with that versus just staying on track. So everyone else is looking around freaking out and they're just pulling into the lead. That's the moment when people really kind of take that. So how do they do that?
That's so hugely important. And I think there are a couple of things that you touched on in there. First of all, one is just having good habits. And that piece is critical. So agents who have really good habits of staying in touch with past clients, staying in touch with their sphere of influence, and constantly looking to help others are the ones who are going to succeed. As a matter of fact, we have an agent who I have a great relationship with, one of the most successful agents we have. And at the end of every meeting, he truly says, and he's not the only person who's ever said this to me, but he truly says it and means it. What can I do for you? And that's the way he approaches his business. So there's a piece of the habits, I think, within successful agents that they're constantly helping other people, right? So that's a piece of it. But this other piece that you just kind of highlighted is this idea that in a crisis, there is amazing opportunity. Everybody who enters into a crisis is going to kind of default to their most challenged parts of their personality, right? So I like to say that when a crisis hits, angry people get angry, sad people get sad, scared people get scared, right? You can kind of predict what's going to happen. A really successful person knows that. And what they've decided to do instead is find the opportunity in that crisis. So I'll give you a really great example. We did, I think, a really great job of helping our agents throughout COVID, but then also when we entered into the post-settlement world. And part of what we did there is we said there's going to be confusion. Agents are going to be confused, frustrated, all of that stuff. Clients are going to be misinformed. It's just the nature of it, right? There were a lot of grabby headlines. So we said, here's an opportunity first for us to really dig into this and to get to know it better than anybody else, and then to become a resource for everyone in the field. So that meant our customers who were coming to us, that meant the general public, creating videos, blog posts, being interviewed in articles, creating like even just really brief materials that would describe what was about to happen and how that affected them. And then also to really be approaching our as Joellen calls them, our industry companions instead of competitors, to approach them with the kind of kindness and care we were doing with our clients and customers and the general public. So really helping them understand what was changing, what our approach was, and how we were going to be able to work together. So because we did that, we had agents who actually got business because they were the authority in an environment where there was such confusion.
Right.
These people actually understood it. They could easily explain it. They knew how to move forward. So I think that's one great example that when there is a big change coming, you know there's going to be chaos. Be the voice of calm. Be the expert.
And perspective.
Absolutely.
I'm borderline crazy, but when COVID hit, with just the decisions that I will make, but when COVID hit, we had a lot going on the Cape. We had someone that was sick. I was able to go stay there. And then when COVID hit, yes, everyone thinks of COVID and then the market going crazy. There was a 2.5 to 3 week period that everything froze.
At least.
Nothing moved.
Yep.
And the minute that it hit, we were on Cape. We had really pretty newly acquired these offices. There was like somewhere between 200 and 300 rental properties we had in inventory. And the owners were obviously panicking.
Sure.
Nobody knew if people were going to be able to rent houses that year. They, some reservations had been made. People wanted to pull out.
Well, and to your point, we had not been deemed critical workers yet.
Yes, there was this unknown.
Right.
So I ended up with the hot potato of these rental owners and communicating with them. And the first thing I tried to figure out was like, let's like get some perspective. Let's pull this out. Now it was a moment of like, what is going to happen? Like, I don't have anything to point to of the last pandemic and what happened with housing and rental.
That's right. As our in-house counsel would say, please be patient with me. This is my first pandemic.
Yes. Yeah. But in the midst of all that, as I was sort of going through that, we literally drove down the street and bought a beach cottage. Yep. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Probably for like $150K less than it should have sold for. Yep. And not because we had oodles of money. It was money we shouldn't have spent. And it wasn't big. But I was like, this is the moment to have a deal.
That's right.
Everyone is fully panicked.
That's right.
So it's like...
And you had been stuck in a small place too.
We were in a condo in the city.
In an environment where the restaurants were shut down. I mean, it was a good... investment opportunity, but it was also just such a good move for you guys.
But forcing yourself to make those decisions, being the person, like being the one that's like, not only am I going to pull myself to the 10,000 foot view, but I'm going to act that way too. And I'm not saying like, but that is what I feel like helps us as leaders, like taking that when these things come up that should on a micro level panic us. It's like, let's go out. Right. Then let's start making decisions as if we're up here.
That's right.
And then everyone starts to calm down. Oh, you're doing that?
Yes.
Oh, you're saying that?
Yep.
You're not panicking? I'm not panicking either.
That's right.
And that's the only person that people want to be around at that time.
100%. There's a phrase that we've heard that particularly in the time during and since COVID, and that's flight to quality. That when times are challenging, consumers need quality advice. They need a quality brand. They need quality services. They need the expertise. So flight to quality and expertise matters. And I think in any kind of set of circumstances that where there are challenges, around you, one or a multitude, as often is the case, that really leaning into your expertise and how you can help others is the way out of it. And it's just amazing to me how many times in business people adapt. I mean, humans are extremely adaptable, but they do have this time period where they freeze. The fight, flight, freeze mentality has to kick in. It's our lizard brains. There's no avoiding that. So how can you, in those moments, really lean into your strengths and do the best you can? So I think it's just really magical. It's a pretty special thing.
So new technology. Now, we're just talking about trends. We're not talking about every single person. These rules don't apply to everyone, but what we've seen, what you've seen, as someone who's really I feel like had a lot of experience with this. We're talking about the top 1%. How do they handle new technology?
It's such a good question because I think a lot of people think they just jump on everything when it comes in. They're the early adopters. I would not say that is typically the case.
Right.
I think a sales business on the whole is really driven by relationships. So real estate agents who are in the top 1%, they don't just jump on whatever new technology is coming in. They try to figure out, is this going to help me with my relationships, ultimately, or is this going to give me time back? Because then I can invest that in relationships.
Yes.
So they're really good at setting a clear boundary and a clear threshold for when a new technology is going to be useful. I think right now the agents who are successfully using new technologies they're really kind of creatively figuring out how they can use AI. We've been helping our agents with some of that. And what they've done with it is they've gained time back using it. That's really been the best use of it. Still, it's their expertise above all. So you can use some of the analytical elements of it, but it's still not quite nuanced and detailed enough in order to really focus on any given particular home. It remains to be seen whether or not an agent will ever be able to rely on that technology for the analysis of an individual home's value or something like that. But it can help with some of the other elements. So really, ultimately, they're trying to figure out, again, is it helping me deepen my relationships or is it giving me time back so that I can really invest in relationships?
And this boiling back to the two first things we started with was like, you have your habits, you have your basics down,
Yep.
you are consistent and your structure is there. So it's like,
Yep.
it's quick. You could be quick to make that judgment.
Yep.
And it's just like anything else, like a new shiny object or a big, thing that people think is a big deal. It's not distracting.
Yep.
It just keep going. And I think it is. It's probably an annoying answer, but I agree with you. And it's kind of in the middle. It's like they don't shy away from it.
No.
You can't hide from these things, but they're going to figure it out, look at it, and it might not be for them, and then not get distracted by it, keep moving.
Yeah. And I think there's a piece of it too that's really important to keep in mind is that many of our top producers will reach out to our team to be that resource, to be able to say, this new piece of technology that I've been hearing about, should I be working on this right now, or should I wait, or should I just ignore it? Mm-hmm. And our team is able to, because we know them really well individually, we can say, for your business, this makes great sense. And in all likelihood, we would have already gone to them anyways and said, hey, by the way, you should be using this tool. But in many cases, we're saying, ignore it, at least for now. I'll let you know if it suddenly shifts and is going to add value for you.
So shifting over to what I feel like is, we had it as one of the biggest points kind of here is collaboration. Mm-hmm. I feel like our culture is truly built on collaboration, and we do probably have the highest per agent productivity for companies our size, probably one of the top in the country.
Yes.
And extremely collaborative, genuinely, people will share. So just walk me through, like, what do we mean when we say top agents are collaborative? What are people doing?
That's a good question. And I think it's got different levels or layers to it. So a great example is if we zoom out, the network, the Sotheby's International Realty Network, is very collaborative. So many of our top agents are involved in networking groups or brainstorming groups where they're sharing the tools or their processes or anything that has actually helped them drive their businesses forward. So that's kind of like the first step among that layer. But the second step is they're sharing clients as well. Mm-hmm. Because really at the top of the price points, it's a very few people in the world who actually have this kind of wealth. And they are buying in places like Aspen or New York or Florida or Italy, for God's sakes. I mean, they are all over the world. They own multiple properties. So in many cases, not only are these agents sharing their processes, their technology, the things that are making them successful, but they're actually sharing clients. Mm-hmm. They're helping those clients with a continuity of service. Then if you dial it into our company, on the whole and how collaborative we are, it is very much the kind of environment where either within an office or from office to office, if an agent has a challenge or they have an opportunity, they're going to reach out to the folks that they know to say, I'd like some help with this. Can you help me do this? And if it's something where they are thinking that they have a challenge, they don't know anybody who has solved this, they'll come to us and say, here's what I'm dealing with, or here's the opportunity I have. Who do you think I should talk to? And we're saying, oh my God, so-and-so on the Cape dealt with this, or so-and-so up in Newburyport has already done this before. And we make that connection. And then they can have a conversation with somebody. And it is not a competitive conversation. It's one of collaboration. It's one of sharing ideas. It's a growth mindset. And so, that's really kind of a way, but we also collaborate with them. I think that's another way that we collaborate. I think at different points in agents' careers, they need different things. When you're first starting, it is learning from books. It's learning from other people. It's learning in classroom style in many cases. But at the high level of their business, you're learning from each other. Mm-hmm. Because those are the people who are facing the same challenges that you are. Those are the people who have figured out really complex problems. So that's where I think collaboration is hugely important for a top 1% agent.
Also, you're doing deals together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so having a good rapport, being open, and having that abundant mindset of just like, there's enough business around for everybody. We're like that from an ownership standpoint for sure. Mm-hmm. Can be a resource for someone. We're thrilled to be, because we know those people are going to be a resource for us, right?
That's right.
I think that's something that I see across the board with like top producers. It's just like, I'd rather have a good relationship with everybody and be able to put deals together and not have headaches and burn bridges. So I definitely think that goes across the board. So that comes down to sort of the last part that we highlighted. And that's, it really lends itself to that authentic relationships, right? So we said that the top obviously a quality that we see in the top 1% is that despite what's happening in the industry, despite new technology, despite everything, it really all boils down to your relationships. And typically these relationships are authentic, which is such, I think, something that we need to drill into, because people feel like now with the internet, like if I have 50,000 followers on Instagram, if my email list is 40,000 people, it's like, no, it really comes down to, for top performers, it really comes down to their relationship. So how do they grow these relationships? How do they get these relationships? How does that happen?
It's the most valuable part of their business. I think, when you talk about social media, that's like a megaphone, but let's face it, relationships and endurance is not made through a megaphone. It's made through one-on-one relationships. So the way that they're doing that is by, first of all, starting by caring. It's not about the number of people that you're connecting with. It's about the depth of the relationship. So I like to say it's about going deep, not wide, right? A great example would be the way that our relocation and referral division is built, the way that actually you and then now Amy have really leaned into that, is to create relationships before the deal happens. So in other words, talking to agents, getting a sense of where do they have either a sphere of influence because they went to college there or because they grew up there or whatever, but also where are their clients going to and coming from? And then making relationships with agents who are working in those marketplaces so that you already have a rapport built. And then it's about staying in touch and sharing, again, ideas. Market information could be useful. Sharing listings. So in other words, if one of our agents sees that their colleague, for instance, in Dallas, where maybe they've got a lot of back and forth, that they've got a listing that's coming up, they might share that on their social media and use their megaphone for that agent's purpose to try to help them. So it's really about leaning in to those relationships, staying in touch, and having meaningful conversations, not just passing business cards and saying, how's your market? How are things going? It's much more about really digging into hey, listen, I have to have a difficult conversation with a seller this weekend. I was wondering if you've been dealing with this as well. So it's much more about having those kinds of meaningful conversations.
Right. And becoming and always adding value.
Absolutely.
Really. That's what makes people remember you.
Absolutely.
So lightning round, just 2 quick ones.
Yep.
What is one thing we're always quietly looking for in someone that we think has real growth potential?
I think it has to do with that giver's gain mentality, that mindset of trying to add value to others around them. So that's one piece of it. But I think the second that has to go along with it is a sense of good habits. It's that diligence of doing the work every single day that is going to lead to business not being too terribly distracted.
One thing top agents never do.
One thing top agents never do is waste time, ultimately, right? So they know the value of their time, and they're going to spend it on things that are going to either help their clients or help their colleagues in other marketplaces. They're going to do something to add value. And if they're not adding value, they're going to pivot and find a way that they can.
All right. So the recap is master the basics, decide what you're going to do with new technology, make the decision. Look at it, decide if it's for you, not for you. Don't let it linger. Learn and adapt, make that your mission. If something if something's new, figure it out, collaborate and build authentic relationships. Don't focus on the volume versus really drill down into those relationships. And I want to encourage people that are listening with all of that to what I really gained from this is through all of the noise, we have to maintain the basics and the good habits. So if you're listening and you want to implement one thing, stack it. Stack it with something you do every single day. If there's one thing you feel like you should be doing in your business, do it if you have coffee in the morning, do it then.
That's right.
Figure it out. If there's something specific, calls you need to make, and you're going to pick your kid up at school, right? Make it then. So I think just listening to these things, sometimes people get excited, but then they're like, what did I take away from it?
Right.
So that's kind of what I feel like I might even try to do is just think of one thing I'm going to do to stay consistent. It's only going to get noisier. It will keep getting noisier. It always will. And that's one thing you can count on. But your own habits are really, I think, what we want, but what the 1% really drill down into and they don't lose focus.
Agreed.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.